Genesis 4 is the unhappy sequel to the sin of Adam and Eve. They begin having children, and the older son Cain murders his younger brother Abel. The motive is jealousy. God accepts Abel's offering but does not accept Cain's, because Abel offers the first fruits of his flock, but Cain just offers some vegetables. Cain sulks, and God tells him, if you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must master it. Cain doesn't master it. It masters him, and he kills Abel out in the field. When the Lord asks Cain where Abel is, Cain gives his infamous reply, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? Cain, caught in his sin, follows his parents' lead. He evades responsibility for his acts, but the ruse doesn't work. God condemns him to be a wanderer on the earth. Cain goes out from the presence of the Lord, both literally and physically, which tells us that he's now even further estranged from God than his parents were. In the New Testament, 1 John 3:12, he counsels people. He says, do not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his own actions were evil and his brothers were righteous. This offers us one explanation as to why God accepted Abel's sacrifice but not Cain's. We can also see in this verse how Cain's evil nature established a pattern, which we'll see again and again in the Bible and throughout human history. Bad people persecute good people, often with no sense of guilt. And besides being the world's first murderer, Cain's also the world's first persecutor. After Cain's being cursed to be a wanderer on the earth, there follows a great mystery of the Bible. Cain takes a wife. We don't know where she came from, but presumably the only sensible answer is that Adam and Eve had daughters who were not mentioned, and Cain marries one of them. 3 generations later, I skipped through the descendants here for a little bit. A descendant, Lamech, takes not one wife but 2. Things are degenerating. There's a handful of people existing on earth, and already there's murder and polygamy. Neither of them are part of God's original plan. Not only is Lamech the first polygamist, but he's also the first person to brag about his violent nature. He boasts to both wives that he killed a man for wounding him. He is ecstatic at being vengeful. There's no principle of eye for an eye with Lamech, but rather a life for a wound. He never gives a thought as to whether his actions might displease God. He himself decides what is good and evil, exactly the privilege that Adam and Eve sought when they disobeyed God. Adam and Eve had another son, Seth, and it's from him that all human beings descend, since he's the ancestor of the famous Noah of the flood story. A few generations later, Methuselah breaks a longevity record, living 969 years. But more interesting than Methuselah was his father Enoch, who walked with God. And he was not, for God took him. But what does that mean? We're not completely sure. In the Bible, walked with God always means lived a moral life. So the story suggests that God was so fond of this righteous man that he took him into heaven without Enoch actually dying. From the generations between Abel and Noah, Enoch is the only person mentioned as being a righteous man. In the New Testament, the letter to Hebrews commends Enoch as one who pleased God. This has been David explaining the story of Cain and Abel and the generations leading up to Noah. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good day.